please do not mute your phone. Oh, please mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking, but please do not put your phones on hold. For all participants, we ask that you identify yourself when speaking. Committee members, just a reminder not to use the chat function as audience cannot see it. If you have a technical problem, Richard, Nikki, or I will try to interpret what you send to us that way. We will now ask Nikki to proceed with a roll call. Please indicate you're here and your organization after Nikki calls your name. Nikki?
Thank you, Wendy. Dawn Bogart.
Hi, Dawn Bogart with Homeless Youth Connection.
Melody Boyette.
Melody Boyer with the VA.
Sorry, Melody. Vanessa Cartel. Sylvia Chavez. Allison Cook Davis.
Hi, this is Allison Cook Davis from Morrison Institute for Public Policy.
Erin Cohen Haig.
Good morning, Erin Cohen Haig with Save the Family.
Jessica Cruz.
Good morning, Jessica Cruz, Housing Authority of Maricopa County.
Kathy Dinolfi.
Good morning, Kathy Dinolfi, a newly.
Ernie Peralta for DC Ernst. Nicole Gibson.
Good morning, Nicole Gibson for your mom.
Michelle Beck for Anne Marie Johnston. Christina Lopez.
Good morning, Christina Lopez for Native American Connections.
Marcy McFarland.
Marcy McFarland from Home Inc.
Jim McPherson. Jennifer Page. I think Andy Wambach's here for Jennifer, but I don't know if that we can count him or if he can vote in regarding that. So, but thank you, Andy, for joining us. Gerardo Pena.
Hi, this is Gerardo Pena with Chicanos por la Causa.
Aaron Rain.
Aaron Rain, present, City of Mesa.
Tyler Rosensteel.
Hi, Rosensteel with Solari Crisis and Human Services.
Chayla Schuster. I know Chayla is on, but I think she's having audio difficulties. Sarah Sims. Laura Scott Nicky. Michelle Stokes. Jocelyn Wilkinson.
Jocelyn Wilkinson with Arizona Department of Veteran Services.
Co-chair Richard Cruz.
Richard Cruz, Human Services Campus, present.
Co-chair Wendy Johnson.
Wendy Johnson, Justice Center, present.
Did I miss anyone? Back to you, Co-chair Johnson.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for being here. I know in this weather, our urge is to be anywhere but here, so thank you for calling in or making time out of your day for us. The next item on our agenda is a call to the audience. Members of the public were given an opportunity to submit written comments relating to this meeting to the azmag.gov comment site within 1 hour of the posted start time of the meeting, or can join the Zoom meeting by requesting a link from MAG staff or registering on the COC meeting website. Lots of options. If you are wishing to make a comment, please raise your hand in Zoom and you'll be invited to unmute at that time. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Nikki, were there any comments received or anyone who's joined the call to offer comments?
None that I'm aware of that we have received.
Okay, we have a couple of guests who have let them have introduced themselves in chat. We have Colette Black, who is the new Chief Development Officer at UMOM. She's listening in today, and Emily's saying she's having some audio stuff. And Patricia Scott Lopez with Arizona Complete Care is also a guest today, but they have not raised their hands as far as I can tell. Because no one has any comments or asked to speak, we're going to move on to the next agenda item. So our next item is the approval of the June 8th meeting minutes. Does any member of the committee have questions or comments on the minutes? I am not hearing any corrections or questions. Nikki, does anyone have their hand up?
None that I can see.
Okay, perfect. Me neither, but I never know if I'm doing this right. So could I have a member of the committee provide a motion to approve the June 8th, 2022 Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care Committee meeting notes, please?
Richard Cruz, so moved.
We have a motion from Richard Cruz and a second from?
I'll second.
That's Melody Boyette. Is there any discussion of the motion? Okay, we will once again ask Nikki to proceed with the roll call vote. Please indicate clearly how you vote, stating yay or nay after your name is called. Nikki?
Don Bogart,
Yay.
Melody Boyer,
Yay.
Vanessa Cartel, Sylvia Chavez,
Yay.
Allison Cook Davis,
Yay.
Aaron Cohen Hegg,
Yay.
Jessica Cruz,
Yay.
Kathy Dinolfi,
Yay.
Bernie Peralta, Nicole Gibson,
Yay.
Michelle Beck, or Anne Marie Johnston, Christina Lopez,
Yay.
Sorry. Thank you, Christina. Marcy McFarland,
Yay.
Jim McPherson, Jennifer Page, Gerardo Pena,
Yay.
Aaron Rain,
Yay.
Tyler Rosensteel,
Yay.
Chayla Schuster. I know Chayla's here. She's just having some audio difficulties. Sarah Sims, Laura Scott-Nicky. I thought I saw Laura on here as well. Laura's here.
She's unmuted too.
Okay. Michelle Stokes, Jocelyn Wilkinson,
Yay.
Co-Chair Richard Cruz,
Yay.
Co-Chair Wendy Johnson.
Yay. Laura did a yay in chat. Laura's Scott. Yeah.
Did I miss anyone? The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
It's my turn.
We'll move on to the next agenda item. Richard?
Yes. So the Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care Board and subcommittees, I apologize for the chirping, will provide a brief verbal update on the recent activity as well as a legislative activity. As I've stated before, it is important to read your packet. The written updates were included in the packet, including a legislative update. Does anyone have any questions about the update memo or have discussions on the legislative update, particularly because the session is like the budget was approved. So there were some things that went through. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so I will assume that everybody's up to date, knows what's what. So we will Move to the next agenda item. Next, Stephanie Crum, HMIS Manager at Solari, will provide a recap of the system flow dashboard.
Richard, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think Matthew Kelly would like to provide a verbal update. Am I correct?
Oh, yes, please, Matthew, come on. I'd love to call on you. There you go.
Yeah, from the Coordinated Entry Subcommittee.
Hi, Richard.
Also, let us not be jealous of Matt being in like 70-degree weather up in Flagstaff right now.
Stop it. Hi, everybody. I'll just be super brief and quick, just give a couple of quick updates. I think one of the big things that we've been working on is working with victim service providers on the integration into the coordinated entry system. And I've given updates in the past. We've talked through breaking it down into not only providing better access for individuals in the victim service world, but then in addition to that, assisting with prioritization. We have created a process for access by which typically people fall off after about 7 days because they're assessed and then they never interact with the coordinated entry system ever again because of the privacy protections. We've set it up so that victim service providers are actually going to be reporting individuals on a every other week basis to Solari, and these individuals are going to be individuals who have opted into the coordinated entry process. Not every single individual who's ever gone through a victim service provider, but only the individuals who've opted into that coordinated entry process. But that will allow them to remain on the by name list so that they can be evaluated and assessed for possible resources as they come available. Moving forward, we are going to be looking at prioritization. And as we had kind of understood and I think realized through discussion, there isn't a whole lot of data to understand what the actual need is for prioritization because we don't have a lot of information about individuals in domestic violence shelters and or receiving services. So what we're going to be doing is using the information we're gaining from the access portion to start getting a better sense of how many individuals are interacting with the coordinated entry system from the victim service providers and how we would want to address prioritization based upon the number of individuals that are engaging. So that's something that we're going to be looking at into the future. I think we're going to start that conversation in August as we'll have some initial data from the access portion of things. The reporting from the victim service providers to Solari, I believe, started on July 1. I understand there were a couple of blips with transmitting the data to Solari, but it sounds like a lot of those little hiccups have been worked out and we should have some pretty consistent data. I know that Stephanie, you're on, so if there's anything that I missed in that, please let me know.
No, that was pretty spot on. Just wanted to mention that right now it's just with the victim service provider shelters, and then we will hope to expand that to other victim service providers.
Correct. Thank you. The other aspect that we've been looking at in coordinated entry is high needs, high costs, and we're kind of looking at a scale of how many individuals were on the by name list and having a lot of frequent interactions with the overall system. We've been kind of drilling down into that and trying to get a better understanding of that. One of the things that we had found is that there are a number of individuals who were on the by name list, about 1,000 individuals, so about 25% of the by name list on the single side who had not had an assessment done. 35% of those individuals are in shelter, and the other 65 were through outreach providers. While we acknowledge the fact that outreach providers may not have completed an assessment just because obviously they're engaging on the shelter side, we went ahead and did share some of that information with the ESG subcommittee. Most recently, I believe it was last week. And we're kind of going to be working with them to identify what the trends might be, if there's anything that we can do to kind of help with making sure that everybody in the shelter is actually being evaluated and assessed so that they can be evaluated for different resources and, fingers crossed, hopefully reduce the length of stay in those shelters as a result. Last but not least, we all know that in the background of everything that goes on right now, we have a coordinated entry evaluation that's occurring. It sounds to me they're at a point now where the home base actually has some very specific questions. So in our next working meeting, we're going to be dedicating 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how many questions they have, to kind of going through some of their questions and trying to give them a better sense of where things stand with the coordinated entry system. Initially, they'd come in with some really generalized questions about the system, and I think now they've evaluated a bunch of stuff and they now are coming back with some really directed, I think, very specific questions. So the hope is that we're going to be able to help direct them in the right direction as far as things are moving forward here. So we are seeing some progress. And in our last conversation with them, they did say that they would be coming out to Phoenix at some point in time, I believe. So we should be looking for that in the near future. As we get dates and we find out what that's going to look like, we will definitely let people know. I know we were really focused on having them come out to do some in-person focus groups specifically with individuals who are interacting with the coordinated entry system, with staff, and just to kind of get a better sense of like boots on the ground, what's actually happening. Because until you see the system in person, it kind of doesn't feel real, in my opinion. Yeah, that's what coordinated entry is up to.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Does anybody have any questions for Matt? If there are no questions, again, we will move on. Thank you. We'll move on to Stephanie with the System Flow Dashboard. Stephanie, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Good morning, members of the committee. Let me go ahead and share my screen here and we will dive into the System Flow Dashboard. So real quick, again, if this is the first time you're seeing this, the first page has some definitions on here that just define, what we're talking about: inflow, what is inflow, what is outflow, who is actively homeless. But let's go ahead and get into our active overview. All right. So right away, we saw a leveling off from March to April, but we're starting to see that rise again. It is being driven by singles right now. I know with the scaling, families can look like they're just kind of steady, but they actually did have a pretty big drop here. So I wanted to recognize that they have a drop in their active number. But right now, overall, we're having a bit of a rise here that's driven by singles. Let's go ahead and get down to some subpopulations here. A couple quick things to note right away is that our two most impacted populations in this rise are chronic and elderly. Both are seeing about a 12% increase. So they are the hardest hit populations down here. One thing to also note, which I feel is a success, is that if you look at our unsheltered, it typically tracks right along with all the other populations, but it is actually tracking down, which means our heat relief efforts are working, I hope, because this is the first time that it's actually tracked the other way versus tracking right along with the rise. So I think that's a very good thing to point out. Very interested to see how that'll continue to play out through the summer. But does anybody have any questions on subpopulation or overall numbers before I move on? Okay, let's get into flow details here. All right, so again, we're just seeing the total active homelessness number here at the top. As we get down into inflow and outflow, you can see that our inflow is still outpacing our outflow. So that's why we see that spike there. When we get into inflow detail here, it looks like this is really being driven by a return from an active, about a 24% increase from April till now. Versus new client, which is about 7% increase. This would be expected with the opening up of heat relief shelters and heat relief programs. People that typically don't interact with those shelters and those providers are going to be coming in for heat relief. So this, I would expect to see this driven by return from inactive right now, but that is what we are seeing. On the outflow detail, we're seeing a drop again in unknown negative exits. I would attribute that to folks staying in shelters and in programs longer for the heat right now. I do want to celebrate a little win here too. We did have an increase about 18% of housing. So from 392 placements in April all the way up to 461 for May. So that is also a win. Does anybody have any questions on outflow, inflow? All right. I will stop sharing. Please let me know if you do have any questions, and thank you again for having me this morning.
Thank you. Does again, as a whole, does anyone have any questions? Oh, you guys are on that summer quiet stuff today. I will say, not to pop anybody's bubble, but for the last 3 weeks in terms of the unsheltered count around the campus. We have been on the rise. And so that is something that, we're definitely taking a look at. We had been steadily declining around the campus, but as the last 3 weeks, we've been on the uptick. So, we're definitely interested to see how this data continues to play out, but also how it informs you all's approaches, so that as we're having systemic level conversations. Next, Kelly Williams. Oh, we've got it in the chat. Laura Scott Nikki. For some reason, her sound is not working. Quick question. Do we know, as the numbers are rising, hold on. Do we know, as the numbers are rising, how many are first-time entries into homelessness? Stephanie.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Do you want me to share my screen again real quick? I can pull that up.
Yes, please.
Go real quick. Yeah. So as we look down at our inflow detail, this tells us who's new, who's returned from housing, and who's returned from inactive. So this yellow line is our new clients, and they're at about 1,131. And it was a bit of, oops, sorry, these get a little weird. It was a bit of an uptick from April, which was at 1,056. Yeah, so what percent was that again? It's about 6-7% increase of new clients.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions that anyone has? Going once and twice. Okay. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Next, we will have Kelly Williams, Human Services Director with MAG, provide an overview of the supplemental NOFO. We all love that. Released by HUD.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, co-chairs, and thank you everyone for having me here this morning. I did want to give you an update on the timeline and progress for the supplemental notice of funding award opportunity, that came out several weeks ago, late June, regarding a potentially $27 million new dollars coming to our continuum to specifically address unsheltered individuals with severe service needs. We are in the process of finalizing our scorecards. There are 3 different scorecards that have been created for possible funding. The first is for housing. This NOFO, I'm just going to use that abbreviation. I hope that's okay for lingo. I think everybody knows what that means on this call. Is specifically for rapid rehousing, transitional housing, and permanent supportive housing, with an emphasis on the housing first model being used as it is specifically lined out by HUD. There was a HUD webinar, and then the National Alliance also had a webinar. Between the 2 of those, there were several themes that came out. For those of you who attended the scorecard meeting that MAG hosted last week, this will be a little bit of a repeat, but I think it's worth continuing to say, for us to successfully draw down these additional dollars, which is a one-time funding opportunity over a 3-year grant period. So it is not $27 million per year. It is a total of $27 million across the 3-year period. And it is, again, a one-time opportunity. There are 3 specific buckets or 3 specific themes that have come through both in the funding opportunity and by experts who've reviewed it. The first is lived experience voices must be included in applications. They want to hear from individuals who have lived an unsheltered life, who may have had severe service needs, and make sure that their voices are included and they have seats at the table. Furthermore, they, again, and I will say this because Housing First is mentioned multiple times in the in the awards notice, they are really looking for projects that follow the specific Housing First model, and it cannot just be for lack of more polished language, it can't just be the talk. You have to be showing the walk. You have to be showing how you're actually following the evidence-based model. And furthermore, racial equity is a priority for these dollars, and it can't just be a section at the end. HUD wants to see how racial equity is being considered through the entire decision-making process. So with that in mind, we have created 3 scorecards. We have reviewed these, and last week we had a stakeholder meeting for review of the scorecards. We did receive some great feedback from members of the community on areas that should be weighted higher versus areas that should be weighted less, additional language that should be included, etc. We have made those edits to the 3 scorecards, and to clarify, the 3 are: the first one is for housing, which must include a supportive service partner. The second is for supportive services only. And the third is for HMIS utilization. So HMIS utilization and coordinated entry utilizations are requirements of this funding as well. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone on this call. To give you an update on our timeline, we are presenting those, or I'm here today to discuss them with you in conversation. I thought this would be better as a conversation than showcasing the scorecards. We are happy to send them to you in their draft format for further feedback. We are also taking them to the COC board on July 25th for their further feedback. And then we're going to finalize them and we're going to move forward with the application. We plan to have a kickoff event for this one-time supplemental NOFO on July 27th. And we will be sending information out about that today. If you want to put a hold on your calendar now, it will be from 1 to 3 p.m. again on July 27th. I don't know if I said January previously. I wish it was January. I've got a little heat. Like everybody else, my brain isn't functioning with this much heat. And then the idea is that, again, we don't have a firm deadline quite yet, but we expect to have our application completed and out to potential applicants early August, and applicants will have a month to complete that application. We will be available to answer your questions, et cetera, during that time. I'm really excited. Granted, there is, for those of you who've ever worked on one of these applications for your organization, or you've worked on our end and putting together all the information, it is quite a lift, especially with another NOFO coming right down the pike for our team. However, how could we not apply for an additional $27 million for this population for our community? It is a great chance for us to do some really interesting new work, to look at this work creatively, to bring together new partners to the table. We encourage you to think creatively on the populations that you're trying to address, and social service providers who may not have previously received funding, who you can bring into the table through your application to try to work with people differently. We recognize that a lot of our unsheltered folks who have severe service needs are chronic, and these are not easy individuals to they're not always the easiest individuals to convince to come into shelter, correct? So that's why we need to be thinking about this a little differently, but we're very hopeful that we will receive this funding and we will be able to do great things with it across our continuum. With that, Madam Co-Chair and Sir Co-Chair, I am available for any questions that you or other members of the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're talking about funding and innovative programming. So I expect that people must have questions. So with that being said, what questions do we have? And there we go. We'll start with Wendy.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Kelly brought something up in the information meeting that I think we need to be very clear on. This is for housing, permanent, transitional, long-term housing. So we can't use this to fund another emergency shelter or expand shelter beds. Is that correct, Kelly?
That is correct. There are three forms of housing that can be funded with these dollars. They are permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, and transitional housing. Shelters are not included in this funding opportunity. The other question we received during that period of time, just to make sure everybody hears this, is there is no specific age group being called out for this funding. It is any individual who is unsheltered who is having severe service needs.
Kelly, can I jump in really quick in response to emergency shelter? One of the projects that is funded in this NOFO that is unlike our annual NOFO is supportive service only projects. So you can provide supportive services only, which would be case management in emergency shelter. You just cannot provide actually the funding for the bed in the emergency shelter. So that is kind of a distinction that is helpful to understand in that supportive services only category. And if folks have further questions about what is eligible or not eligible, feel free to reach out to us and we can provide some of that guidance.
There's an additional question. Excuse me, Co-Chair, I didn't mean to speak over you.
No, it was Nikki. I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that Dawn and Vanessa had her hand up first and then Dawn Bogart.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go Vanessa. Then I'm gonna raise the question that Laura raised in the chat. So this way everybody can hear it, and then I'll go to Dawn. Okay, so Vanessa, go ahead. The chair recognizes you.
Thank you, Vanessa from ABC, and I apologize for my tardiness. With this being a one-time, I guess would it be renewable year by year? And then my second question is on the third year, I'm thinking about rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing. Well, the housing piece in general, they would have to find a way, whoever is granted this would have to find a way to transition those people to a long-term grant. How would that work?
That is what we're looking for in your application. It is a one-time 3-year funding opportunity. And what we would recommend is that you consider long-term sustainable funding sources that are either state or federally based. And I realize this is not easy. I'm not trying to suggest in any way that this is going to be simple. But one of the application specifically calls out in several places, and this was mentioned in both webinars, they are looking for partners to try to figure out how to access current services that those unsheltered individuals with severe service needs may not currently be receiving. So specifically for ABC and for other individuals who work with access and are individuals with serious mental illness, being able to access those housing dollars that are a benefit of individuals in Maricopa County who have been diagnosed with serious mental illness, they have a housing benefit access should be paying for. Now, is there sufficient housing in our region to be able to place all those individuals? We know there isn't sufficient housing. So again, I'm giving you the parameters for what the funding says, not necessarily the solutions for our specific community.
Yes.
But yes, Vanessa, to answer your question, yes, there needs to be a sustainability plan built in.
Kelly,
awesome. Thank you.
I'll also add, this is one-time funding for 3 years that they will break up into like your annual over the 3 years. However, you do have the 3 years to spend it. So if you're underspending on year 1, you can make up for that in year 2 and year 3. They did not directly say that we are going to take this into account in your future annual renewal amounts, but there was hints towards this may not necessarily intend to apply as one-time funding. However, there may be consideration that if you can show a successful program over 3 years, that this might become part of COC funding in the future. So they couldn't say as HUD that we are guaranteeing the money in the future, but that was something that was hinted at by HUD staff.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. Laura Skynicki says, is the transitional need to be tied to transitional / rapid rehousing only?
I need a little clarification on that question to be able to answer you appropriately.
Laura, can you type in any additional context that I can then share?
I think she may be referring to historically, some of those programs that HUD has funded were transitional to rapid programs.
Yeah, she says to apply for transitional housing, does it need to be tied to rapid?
Yeah.
Yes.
Katie is shaking her head yes, so I'm going to say yes.
All of your, if you're doing a transitional, it needs to be a joint transitional to rapid rehousing, just like our typical HUD annual approval. Again, if you have technical questions as far as what can you pay for or not pay for, reach out to us. We can provide some TA on that.
Thank you. Don Bogart.
Thank you. I just wanted to see, as far as transitional goes, is it to actually purchase or fund additional beds?
Yes, that is an option.
Yeah.
Acquisition is not eligible expense.
Yeah. Sorry, Katie. Yeah.
So yeah, acquisition or rehab of a location is not an eligible expense under this notice of funding opportunity, but the you could provide the rental assistance tied to it. So if you had other funding that was paying for the building and then you needed funding to pay for the bed inside that is a transitional and is going to go from transitional to rapid, or you have a joint program that folks can choose if they're in transitional housing or rapid rehousing, those are eligible expenses. If folks have questions about eligible expenses, we can, Kelly, can also send out some of the exact language that is eligible expenses for continuum of care funding. And so we will make sure that is included in the packet, and all of this information will be included in the 2-hour kickoff in 2 weeks. So we will get very into the weeds and details about what you can and cannot eligibly apply for, who is eligible to apply, what is included in the applications, all of those things.
Thank you, Jocelyn. The chair recognizes you.
Thank you, Chair. Just out of curiosity, is there going to be 2 separate panels for these 2 different NOFOs, or will one panel review both? Just out of curiosity.
We're trying to figure that out. It is a big ask to ask our rank and review to do both. It's a, we're asking volunteers to already come forward to do the first one. And so to ask them to do both, we don't have that quite ironed out yet, is the answer.
Awesome, thank you. If there are no other questions, thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us and for providing that overview. Next, we have Katie Gentry, Human Services Planner with MAG, to provide an overview on the data walk. I'm super excited about it. That took place on June 16th. Go ahead, Katie.
Thank you, Co-Chair Cruz. Just wanted to provide a quick overview of the data walk and how it went. So the event happened on June 16th from 9 to 11 a.m. We had about 80 people in attendance between in-person and online, which was amazing. We walked through all the different data available in our community, from the system flow dashboard to the homelessness trends report, system performance measures, and all of the like, as well as we had one person, thank you, Randy Hayde, for bringing some data into the picture on family homelessness. Last week, I sent out all of the material. We had over 100 questions come out of the data walk, which was great. Folks are definitely very interested in this. We put together a frequently asked questions document that really answered a lot of those questions. And then some of the suggestions and feedback that came out of the data walk will be going to various subcommittees to start to address some of those things and how we can start to answer those questions. And we've already started working on that. I met with Sylvia Chavez last week to talk about Department of Education data and how we can start to incorporate that into our full picture of homelessness. So if you were not able to attend and are interested in those materials, the frequently asked questions, all of the data that was presented, as well as a data takeaway sheet of where you can find that data, feel free to reach out to me and we can send it over to you.
Thank you, Katie. Does anybody have any questions about the data walk? Okay, Katie, I thank you for that. I thank you for the work that you put in on that, and all of the staff at MAG. Thank you so much.
Richard, this is Wendy from Justa. I just wanted to chime in that Katie, Kelly, Nikki, and the entire MAG team did an excellent job of getting the data up and visible so that we could really spend time accessing it. And Richard, as always, I appreciate your facilitation and your genuine understanding of outcomes before we started this. So I just want to echo thank you for everybody, and I look forward to more of this kind of work.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Yes, we have to not just dive into our data, but as I said at the meeting, we have to swim in it as well so that it is actionable and doesn't just become an exercise in like numbers. Next we have, I will hand it to Wendy. Wendy Johnson, my co-chair, will provide an update on the work done on the community adopted best practices document. Go ahead, Wendy. Wendy, you're muted. You're still muted.
Sorry, my screen minimized this for some reason and I couldn't get to my unmute button. So I want to take this time right now to thank several members from the COC committee who created this work group and met for 3 weeks regarding the community adopted best practices. This group included Nikki Stevens and Michelle Miguel, who did a lot of heavy lifting for us in this meeting. This group worked to strengthen the current best practices and include additional language to make the document more inclusive and progressive as we are dealing with a more diverse and complex population. During those meetings, members of the work group added additional items and worked to strengthen how services were delivered in Maricopa County for people experiencing homelessness. Some of those items include language around equity and inclusion, the definition of diversion, the 7 principles of encampments, which was adapted from the USICH information, core elements of street outreach and engagement, also from that same Council on Homelessness. What is a progressive engagement model? What is a move-on strategy? We are also working to create a glossary of terms to include with this, which will be helpful to people coming into homelessness services from a different field or a different community. So that's going to be really helpful. Our document is still in draft form and will be finalized in the next couple of weeks. That's the update. Does anyone who participated in the work group have anything to add? Any questions from anyone on the committee? Okay.
I would love it if we could get this broken out at a micro level. So that this way, this document could be disseminated. I think some of these pieces around the 7 principles of encampments is adopted from the USICH. Those are things that are helpful for people to really be able to have and not just have to Google, but to just be able to reference, and dig into. So I thank you for this work, Wendy, that you all did. I think with everything, we have to think of how do we present this in a way that people can see it, digest it, and run with it, right? So thank you.
And I genuinely believe this is the intent of what Nikki and Michelle are doing, is not reinterpreting anything from the USICH, but to actually kind of cut and paste in there, and we can link to the source so that people can dive a little deeper and see if we've missed anything. But we'll be presenting this for approval down the road here. It's going to take a little while.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and continue the good work. That is wholeheartedly appreciated. Now, let's see, actually, that's where we're going to be out early. So Wendy, I'm going to give it back to you.
We're wrapping up very quickly. Thank you, Co-Chair Richard Cruz, for this. We're going to move on to this next agenda item, which is, do any of you committee members have any action or discussion items for future meetings? We've already noted Richard wanting more information on the best practices for all of us, which we will add as it is available. And you all know to contact Katie for information on the NOFA. Katie and Kelly have, and Nikki have that information. Anything else? Am I missing any hands? Okay. Crickets today. Finally, I want to open up.
Jocelyn, raise your hand.
Well, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to. I don't know if we should have it on agenda, but I don't know if you guys, if anyone here attended the Arizona State Legislature Housing Supply Study Committee, that they had their meeting on Tuesday. Did anybody attend that? I feel like it's important that this committee, is in the nose of what's happening. There's some politicians and mayors that created a legislation committee regarding the housing supply in Arizona. And I took some notes on it yesterday. And I know Joan Service is a part of that committee as well, but I would just like to see updates. And then I can, provide the live stream for their next meeting if anyone would like to see that or be a part of that. Just so we're, as a committee, we're in the know what's happening on a legislative level.
Yes, Jocelyn, if you could please do that, it would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, I'll send it over.
Thank you.
Allison Cook Davis has her hand up as well.
I hope you can hear me. My internet is very unstable. I just wanted to sort of ask if like anyone can attend to view those study committee meetings, Jocelyn, if you know.
Yes, they're live to the public. So absolutely, that's why I wanted to mention it to make sure, I feel like it's important that we are listening and hearing what's happening, what politicians are doing around the housing supply.
I would absolutely be interested in listening in and be happy to provide even a summary also if that would be helpful at all to this subcommittee or our committee.
For sure. Our legislation liaison took some notes and I'm happy to send that over. I just need to know who to send it to, and then I can provide the live link stream for the next meeting in that.
Richard, I believe that should go to Nikki, correct?
Nikki. Yes,
Okay.
that should go to Nikki so Nikki can disseminate it out.
Laura has a question in the chat.
Yes. Oh, wait, this is Wendy's. Go ahead, Wendy.
Oh, Laura Skotnicki is asking, is there a date or link for the next meeting of this group? That's what Jocelyn's going to send out to us along with some notes. Jocelyn, do you have the next meeting date just so we can save it? She's muted. Hang on. She's looking that up. Well, oh, you're muted, darling.
Sorry,
Okay.
the next meeting date is July 26th. I know a part of that agenda, they're going to be talking about veteran homelessness. And they kind of touched on the housing stock supply. There was some politicians. Did anybody attend? Did I ask that already? Did anybody else attend? I just don't want to be repeating okay, Mel, okay. I just don't want to be repeating myself if there was folks on the live stream. But I'll send it all over. But I think it's super exciting. They're talking about NIMBYism. They're talking about zoning. They're talking about putting, this back in private sector's hands and removing some of those restrictions so that affordable housing is built meaningful and it's expanded and there's no limitations on it. So I think it's going to be. I'm hopeful. I'll just put that's where I'll leave it. I'm hopeful that there's some movement in increasing units in the state of Arizona.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. That is really an important piece of information that I missed as well as several others of us. That's awesome. Anyone else with agenda items? This is a natural segue then for you to offer any comments. If you have any current events or information, we can't propose, discuss, deliberate, or take action on this, but is there any announcements? Don't be shy to self-promote. It's okay. We're all in this together. All right, y'all. If there are no further comments, no further business, the meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
We're just meeting on record.
Thank you.